Opening the story on a dark night, a car is speeding down an empty road. Sister, you have to get away as fast as you can. The research team has gone crazy, and no one there is normal anymore. I'll take care of erasing all the data about Heiyu for you. You just focus on getting everyone away from here. We have to escape this country before the research team catches us again, so let's hurry. The little girl in the back, hugging a teddy bear, said, "Mom." Her mother replied, "I'm here." The little girl asked, "Where are we going?" The mother was silent for a moment before stroking her daughter's hair and saying, "Heiyu, are you scared?" "No, we're almost there." Heiyu smiled and replied, "Yes, Mom." Heiyu's mother smiled back. "Heiyu is such a good girl." Just as she finished speaking, a bright light shone directly towards them and crashed into the car, sending it plummeting into the abyss. Heiyu struggled to open her eyes. "Mom, Dad, I'm here, dear." Just then something appeared, caused Heiyu to jolt awake in horror. That dream again. "Time to turn off the alarm clock." A shout came from outside the door. "Betty, turn off that damn alarm clock." Betty replied, "I've turned it off, sorry, Linda." Then she let out a deep sigh. There are 2 rules in this house. First, you have to listen to Uncle Mero. Second, you can't disobey his daughter, Linda. I wonder why I'm feeling so anxious. I never wanted to live like this from the start, but it's something I couldn't change. It's because I have a secret that I need to hide. As soon as I stepped out of the house, the news on TV was all over the place. Yesterday morning, the villain Jeffrey and his 2 accomplices attacked the Chase Bank in New York. However, these villains were unlucky because the hero James happened to be nearby. The exclusive video from NPE captured the scene of hero James defeating the villains. Please watch the video for more details. The video was then played. A man skillfully controlled water to capture the criminals with a very elegant style. As you can see, viewers, this is our hero James, a true hero. Today's date is November 17th, 2024. Nowadays, we live in a world where superpowers once only seen in movies are everywhere. 10 years ago, when climate change occurred, an unknown virus appeared and attacked humans. A genetic research doctor claimed that a new human race with strong bodies could exist in any environment. And that's what he wanted to create. Then, as if fate had planned it, he discovered an unidentified meteorite. He used the meteorite to create a superpower suppressant medicine, resulting in a new humanity with extraordinary abilities being born. Some of them possess superpowers like the one you just saw, and some can prevent the outburst of superpower through contact. That's the guide. My uncle said I'm Mrs. Mero. Mrs. Mero asked, "Would you like to have breakfast, Betty?" Betty replied, "No, I'm going now." Mrs. Mero turned away. "Suit yourself, Linda. Come and have breakfast, dear." Linda ran over. "Yes, Mom." She pointed at Betty and said, "Don't just stand there blocking my way, you idiot, move." That's right, I couldn't avoid this humiliation. My parents died in an accident while trying to escape with me, and my uncle left me here. All to hide the fact that I'm a guide, and that's why I have to live as an ordinary person. I absolutely can't get involved with any superpowered individuals. It's best if I still get paid for my part-time job this month. The money I've managed to save so far is $6,000. In 4 months, I just need to endure a bit longer, and then I'll leave Steve Fan's house. I have a reason to be stubborn and earn a lot of money. And my reason is different from my peers who earn money just to buy something. 10 years ago, when Linda was still young, she said, "I hate that girl, she's so boring." Betty worriedly said, "Uncle?" Betty's uncle comforted her. "It's okay, she's just not used to you yet." Betty was downcast. But her uncle interrupted Heiyu. "What's your name going to be from now on?" The little girl replied, "Betty Brown." Her uncle continued, "Good, from now on, you'll live with that name." "Uncle Ralph, this is my old friend from college. If you need anything, just tell him." "And this is Aunt Mero and her daughter Linda. They'll take care of you, so don't worry." Betty's eyes welled up with tears as she asked, "Uncle, where are you going?" Her uncle stroked her head. "I'll be in touch often, okay." Ralph led Betty in. "Let's go inside." Betty's uncle waved goodbye. "I'll come back for you soon," after saying that he left me alone here. The Stefans family life is quite comfortable with a nice house and plenty of food. However, I still feel empty inside, probably because none of these things truly belong to me. Ralph said, "Betty, if you need anything, just tell my wife." Mrs. Mero's face showed disdain as she said, "Yes, although I'm not sure what you might be missing. If you need anything, feel free to tell me." When I finally got used to their gaze, fate decided to test me again. A shoe hit Betty's head, and Linda shouted, "It's all because of you. You're the reason my dad died." Why? Why on earth did my dad have to die? Not long after, the look of disdain turned into utter disgust. "Get out of my house, you scum!" After that, Betty's uncle messaged her saying he thought he'd be coming to the States the following month and that they'd finally live together. After those messages, I lost all contact with him. According to what Uncle Mero said, he had sold his company and then cut off all contact with everyone, including financial support. At first, I believed I had truly been abandoned. But now I'd be overjoyed to hear that he's still alive and well. Not long after, Betty also arrived at school. She accidentally bumped into someone and tripped, but luckily Daniel caught her in time. Betty's face went blank. "Daniel," Daniel stuttered. "Oh, I'm sorry," Betty replied. "It's okay, really." Daniel stuttered some more. You go ahead." Betty looked at him, thinking that despite his stutter and introverted nature, Daniel was a genuinely kind and sincere friend. She then thanked him. Daniel placed his hand on his chest, and his expression changed in response to the other's teasing. "Look at that pathetic couple going to school together again. Did you two have fun on the bus, making out? Did you stutter when you kissed?" The group laughed. "Yeah, right, Danny boy. You're so lucky to have a girlfriend who's still with you." Daniel stuttered. Don't be like that." Betty felt angry, thinking, "What's so funny about this situation?" She felt both contempt and pity. However, it was best not to show any reaction to those people. Betty opened the door to find her locker filled with something. "What the heck is this?" The people around her mocked. "Oh, Betty, don't you know how to clean your own locker? The smell is going to spread to us." Betty remained silent in the face of their teasing and walked away, thinking, "If I just endure a little more, everything will be fine. We'll soon graduate from this school anyway." Wait, why did they suddenly stop? A handsome young man walked up to them. The two made eye contact, and the young man spoke up. "You over there?" Betty covered her face. "Are you okay?" he asked. Betty replied, "I'm fine. You don't need to help me." James pointed to the book, saying, "But that's my book." Betty interrupted, "I can handle it." James hesitated, but Betty quickly said, "The bell's about to ring, so I'll just go," and hurried away. James suddenly realized something, but by then everyone was staring at him. "Isn't that Hero James?" someone said. "But why is he here?" James stood there still before walking away. A blonde-haired person urged him, "James, please go this way." James replied, "Yes, I know." As he walked, James recalled Betty's words. "So goodbye then." The blonde-haired person noticed James's lingering gaze and asked, "Is something wrong?" James replied, "No, I must have been mistaken." Meanwhile, Betty was worried, thinking, "How is it possible that James aka Lee Seung-hyun is here?" Not long after, she quickly returned to the classroom. The teacher asked Betty, "What time did the bell ring?" "I'm sorry," Betty replied. The teacher continued, "Next time, try to be on time." Betty went to her seat. Daniel asked, "Are you okay, Betty?" "I'm fine," Betty replied. The red-haired person behind them whispered, "Did you hear Hero James is transferring to our school?" Others responded, "What? Why would James come to this mediocre school?" Someone else said, "I saw him this morning." She thought to herself, was it because of that? We met in the hallway this morning because he transferred to this school. If James attended the same school, it means I would see him again in the future. What if James realized I was actually Seo Hayu? What would happen if people discovered that I was here to hide my identity as a guide? The teacher noticed her distraction and said Betty read the third paragraph on the current page. Betty was worried. "Oh no, my book is all wet. I can't read it." Daniel quickly handed her his book, saying, "Here, read from there." The teacher urged Betty. "When will you start reading?" Betty read while thinking. What's going on? Daniel always reacts so quickly, she thought. The class soon ended, and people began discussing among themselves. Did you see James' hero? James, really? James, is that true? Betty walked while thinking everyone at school is talking about James today. On the bus, she overheard people discussing, did you know that among all the current heroes, James is the only one without a guide? Someone said, I heard he's taking medication to maintain his powers, but the more powerful he becomes, the more pain he suffers. Another person asked, "Does it hurt a lot?" If so, his lifespan must be decreasing. "If I could be James's guide, that would be amazing." "I'd be willing to give up my life for him," someone exclaimed. A blonde-haired person jokingly said, "Snap out of it, girl." Another person replied, "What's wrong with admiring someone as handsome as him?" Betty thought, it seems James still hasn't found a true guide. Level S superpowered individuals have godlike powers, but they have a weakness. If they lose control of their abilities, their power is unleashed. There are treatment methods to prevent this, but the pain is something no medication can control. In other words, without a guide, James will die unless a miracle occurs, because it will be very difficult to find a guide for James. How can it be that I am James's guide? I even hate the fact that I am a guide. The reason I have to be alone, the reason I can no longer live as Seo Haeyu, is all because I am a guide. Part of me always hopes that James won't die like that because he is Seong Hyeon, who was once my best friend. But Haeyu's uncle told her never to let anyone know that she is a guide, not to trust the government or any guide organizations. If not, history will repeat itself. So now I am Betty Brown, not a guide, not Seo Haeyu anymore, and I've lost touch with Lee Seung-hyun. I just need to stay out of James's sight for the next 4 months and everything will be fine. After that, I'll leave Cookville. At this moment, Daniel, who was beside her, spoke up. "Betty, we've reached your stop." Betty was startled. Thank you, Daniel. I'll get off now. Sorry." "And thank you for lending me the book," she added. When she turned around, Daniel was standing right behind her. "Daniel, why did you get off too?" Daniel stuttered, I had something to do nearby," although he said that he actually didn't want her to be alone. Betty checked her watch. "I still have 10 minutes before work starts. It takes 8 minutes to get to the cafe from here." She thought about her boss, who always complained about her being late, and sighed. She knew she couldn't avoid being scolded. Betty turned to Daniel and said, "Daniel, it's almost time for me to start work, so I'll go ahead. Take care." Daniel waved goodbye to her. She watched him go, thinking he'll probably be fine on his own. He won't get robbed or anything. Just as she was about to say something to Daniel, a car drove by, and Betty was taken aback. By the time the car had passed, Daniel was no longer there, but she didn't notice that someone was watching her from somewhere. The blue-haired person said, "Oh, look, she's running. Not bad for a start, though. She's a bit late." "Who's the girl you're with? What are you trying to convince me of?" Daniel replied. "No one." The blue-haired person asked, "Then who is she?" "Are you two dating?" Daniel said no. At this moment, his demeanor changed. He no longer looked timid or hesitant, but rather handsome and confident as he smiled. "She's just a kid from school." Somewhere, the sound from a TV broadcast echoed, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have just received news that James will be transferring to a high school in Cookville. This seems quite unreasonable. Suddenly, he's being transferred to a national school in a rural area. It's quite unusual." However, some sources say that this irrational decision stems from the villain Date. So Date is hiding there, so they sent Dream there, but now I thought that crazy Depp guy was already dead. Haha. It's also been a long time since we last heard or saw any news about DIEP. But because the kitchen still hasn't had a leader, there's a high chance that he's also dead, right? At the cafe where Betty worked, customers started to come in, and Betty looked up to see who it was, slightly surprised. "What can I get for you?" she asked. James spoke up, "I'll have a hot latte." Betty broke into a sweat, thinking, why is he staring at me like that? It's still quiet here, so it makes me even more nervous. "Here's your latte, sir," she said. James said, "Thank you. You're the one I met at school this morning, aren't you?" Betty sighed. "Yes." James asked, "Was everything okay this morning?" Betty saw the kindness in his eyes and thought, he's looking at me with such kindness. "Lee Seung-hyun, you're always so kind to everyone," James continued. "I think I've disturbed your work time. You look really similar to someone I know." Betty hesitated, thinking, is he talking about me? Suddenly, a group of other customers arrived. James quickly put on his hat. Betty quickly took her position. "May I recheck your order, please?" James looked at her without saying anything and quickly left. When James left, Betty went to clear the table and found a piece of paper that said, "I'm James McMillan. Let's meet at school later." Betty felt uneasy, thinking I thought I'd be fine now that I'm older, but I guess I still need to be careful. But what if these are just memories that only I have? I'll be fine, won't I? At the Mason Cookfield Pharmaceuticals Laboratory in the United States, a man was pouring chemicals into a container when someone spoke up. Hey. The man was startled. What's wrong? Are you crazy? Be careful, the new person said. Sorry about that. I didn't spill a drop, did I? The man sighed. A single mistake, and we're both done for tomorrow, the new person laughed. That's right. When the new person took off their protective gear, the man shouted, Are you crazy? Don't you see we're dealing with radiation here? The person's identity was gradually revealed. You know who I am, right? These things won't affect me, though. Haha, this is annoying. Die already. The other person asked, Who are you? Daniel walked closer. Guess who? The man became anxious, wondering if he was the villain. James. Daniel smiled. You guessed it. Nice to meet you. The man rushed to press the emergency button. Why isn't this working? Daniel took off his gloves. Useless. We're at this point now, so I can't just do nothing. So if you want to stay safe, answer me properly, or... Unless you're tired of living. The scene switched to Betty's side. I met James at the coffee shop the next day. The day he transferred to Cookfield High School, and everything repeated from morning till now. I didn't know if it would still be like this in the afternoon. First, I had to quietly leave before lunchtime. James came over to say goodbye, saying I was in a hurry earlier and didn't get to greet him once. Nice to meet you, I'm James McMillan. Betty looked at him silently, thinking, what if she became his guide? Even if the risk was 1%, it was better to avoid contact. Betty pulled her hand back, saying, I'm Betty Brown. This caused a stir among the people around them. Did she just snub James? Betty thought to herself, why did the atmosphere become like this suddenly? James said, Betty, if you're not busy, let's have lunch together. Betty was taken aback. James stood up and said, let's go have lunch. Betty was sweating, thinking, did James realize what he just said? How was she going to refuse this time? She just wanted to stop drawing attention to herself. Betty apologized for being late. Linda came over and hugged Betty, saying, didn't she remember their lunch date today? Didn't she remind her this morning? Linda pulled Betty's hand, asking if she forgot. Betty stuttered, oh right, I think I forgot. Linda continued, it's okay, it can happen. By the way, was she planning to have lunch with her new friend today? James greeted Linda, saying, hello, I'm James McMillan, nice to meet you. Linda replied, hello, I'm Linda Steffen, nice to meet you too. Can my friends join us too? The blonde girl rushed over to greet James. Betty thought to herself, what's going on with these people today? The blonde girl continued, Omo Betty. Your friend is here. Daniel, come here. Daniel walked over to Betty. Before Betty could say anything, the blonde girl pulled her into a hug. Betty said, you're so energetic. Linda also said something. They were planning to invite Betty to lunch. Did she want to join them? Betty was worried, not wanting Daniel to get dragged into this. She said, don't Daniel wait? Before she could finish, Daniel interrupted, saying, it's okay, I'll come along. The people behind them said something. Did James just invite them to lunch? They were surprised Daniel took the initiative like that. Maybe it was because Betty was going too. Linda smiled and said, don't tease him anymore. So Daniel was coming along too. James walked over and said, so this is Daniel. I'm James. Nice to meet you. Daniel replied, yes. Betty was surprised behind them, thinking Daniel was still this tall. Linda took James's hand, saying James Daniel is not good with social interactions, so it's better not to shake hands with him. James scratched his head, saying, oh, I didn't know. Sorry if I made him uncomfortable. Daniel shook his head, saying, it's okay, James asked. You're close to Betty, right? Linda interrupted, saying, those two are always together. Let's go to the cafeteria, we're running out of time. Daniel looked at them silently. They quickly walked to the cafeteria for lunch. Betty frowned, thinking they still had to come here. James asked, you usually just eat sandwiches, right? Linda chimed in, saying Barras is a picky eater. It's actually good to be on a diet, but she always just eats sandwiches. Betty's mom and she were worried about her. Betty was told to eat some salad. She forced a smile, thinking it's not pleasant to be worried about like that. James turned around and asked, you said you were very close to Betty, right? Linda laughed and replied, not just close, we're almost like family. We grew up under the same roof. James was surprised. Really? Linda said, those two are like one person. James continued, like family. They don't even seem that close. Maybe he was mistaken. He noticed Daniel seemed close to Betty. However, he just realized Daniel's platinum hair color looked familiar. Daniel asked, someone you know? James stood up, saying, Yes, I know someone with that name. A very dangerous person. He thought Daniel was around the same height. Daniel reacted strongly, hiding his hands. James saw it and wondered if it was a burn scar. Daniel continued saying, "Everyone's hands are dangerous. Really scary." Betty calmed Daniel down, saying, "It's okay. Everything is fine." Linda said, "James, you know, Daniel doesn't like to be touched." "Why did you suddenly touch him?" James apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, I thought he was someone else." Betty said, "I don't think I deserve an apology." James bowed his head slightly, saying, "Daniel, I was stupid. I want to apologize to you from the bottom of my heart." Daniel replied, "It's okay. My mom taught me to accept apologies." "Thank you for accepting my apology," Linda said. "The atmosphere is so awkward now. Daniel, you're so good at ruining the mood. Isn't Betty going to eat more sandwiches?" Betty replied, "I'm full." Betty thought to herself she should have been firmer to prevent Daniel from getting involved. It's all her fault. She just wanted this awful lunchtime to pass quickly. James received a call saying, "Wait a minute, I'll be right there." "Excuse me, something came up. I'll go first." Betty said, "You can go." James turned to Daniel and said, "I'm sorry again, Daniel. See you guys later." When James left, Linda became visibly upset. "Finally, I still couldn't get his phone number and just went home. The person next to me said he would meet me next time, but I was told to ask again that day." Linda pointed at Betty. "Betty, I'm warning you, if you have any intention of sneaking around with James, you'd better be prepared." Betty replied straightforwardly, "I've never been close to James, and I won't be in the future either." Linda left, not forgetting to say, "All right, remember what you said today." Now Betty was worried and turned to Daniel, asking Daniel, "Are you okay? I'm sorry about what happened today." Daniel also asked with concern, "Betty, are you okay?" Betty looked at Daniel and was slightly surprised by his serious expression. Daniel continued, "You need to be careful. Linda seems really angry." "Got it." Betty smiled and said, "You'll be careful. It's not a big deal, really." Daniel, let's go too. A week later, contrary to what I had told Daniel, I was having a really uncomfortable time. James came over and said, "Betty, give me a cup of espresso." "I'll drink it and go. Same order tomorrow, an espresso, okay?" James came to the coffee shop where I worked, and it was almost like he was checking in daily. "Hi, Betty." Betty greeted back, "Espresso." James replied, "The usual, please." Unexpectedly, the door to the coffee shop opened and Linda walked in, greeting, "Hi, James." James was surprised. "You're here too today?" Linda had discovered the situation that day, and when Betty got home, she shouted, "Hey, Linda, why did you throw away my stuff? You know how important it is to me." Linda glanced at her and said, "I felt sorry for you because you're so busy you can't even throw away trash, so I did it for you. Not only did you not thank me, but you're still complaining. You're just unlucky, that's all." Betty shouted back. "Linda, Stefan, Mero came downstairs and asked, 'What's going on? Why are you being so loud?' Linda ran to Stefan, whining, 'Mom, Betty is being unreasonable and angry with me for cleaning her room.' Betty was furious. 'That's not the point.' Mario coldly said, 'Betty, stop causing a scene and go back to your room. Just keep quiet for once.' Betty was furious, clenching her fists, but there was nothing she could do. The next day, luckily, no one came to the coffee shop. Thinking back, I remembered that Daniel was also absent today. Had something happened to him? He had never missed school before. Could it be because of the bullying, which was getting worse? I wish those bullies would slip and break their noses. If only I had his phone number, I would have called to ask how he was doing. Just then a call from the boss came in. "Hello, Betty," answering the phone. That night, Betty recalled the previous call from the boss. He told Betty to count all the money she had earned that day and deposit it into the bank as soon as she finished her shift. He had an urgent matter and needed it done quickly. Betty sighed. She had to work overtime again. "It's too cold. I need to hurry up and go. What's going on here? This is the road I was going to take. What are all these people talking about? There must be a villain around. Isn't that just an abandoned land over there? I think it used to be a small amusement park, but it was closed down and abandoned. I heard that Mason Pharmaceuticals bought the land, and it seems they have a laboratory there." When Betty heard this, she was shocked. If it was indeed Mason Pharmaceuticals, it was a research facility for medicine development and the government was investing in it. Having such a laboratory in Kuchbyong was surprising. Just then she received another call from her boss. "Where are you, Betty? You haven't sent the money yet?" Betty replied, "I'm sorry, the police have set up roadblocks and I don't think I can make it to the bank today." The boss shouted, "What's going on? Is something happening at the bank?" Betty could tell he was at a bar as there was background noise. The boss told Betty, "You must bring the money to me right now." Betty asked, "Where are you, sir?" The boss said, "You'll know when you get there. It's not far from where you are. There's a bar in the alley at the crossroads." Betty hesitated. "Can it wait until tomorrow, sir?" Before she could finish, he hung up. A bar. "There are many bars around here. It's not safe to go alone. I still have the money with me. I should hurry up and go." Everyone was gathering to see what was happening, making the scene even more eerie. "I should run. It's just up ahead at the crossroads. What's that noise?" Behind Betty, a person in a cloak appeared, looking eerie. Betty was startled. "Who is that? When did he start following me?" That hand was reaching out towards Betty. She was going to be caught. Betty was grabbed and she panicked. "Please let me go. Help. Why are you doing this to me?" The eerie figure laughed and said, "Shut up. If you don't want to die, just hand over all the money you're holding and he'll let you go." Betty stuttered, I don't have any money. I swear I don't have a single penny." Please spare me, thinking to herself that this person must be crazy. The robber shouted, "Don't lie to me. You couldn't deposit the money, so you must be carrying it with you. If you don't want trouble, hand over the money now." "Hurry up." Betty tried to resist. "Get away from me." She started to run, thinking, I must run. If I lose this money, my life is over. I mustn't get caught again. The robber's hand grabbed Betty. "You think you can escape?" But his arm didn't seem normal. It was like something out of a horror movie. Betty's eyes gradually closed. She thought, I guess I'm really unlucky, just like Linda said. Even the robber I met has superpowers. The robber approached her and said, "You didn't dare to do anything because you were out of energy, and they just kept forcing you to act. If you obediently hand over all the money, nothing like this would have happened." Suddenly, someone came over and said, "Hey, stop here, that's enough." The robber turned around and asked, "Who is it?" His expression changed as he saw Daniel. Daniel walked over and asked, "It seems you know who I am, don't you?" "The speed of information transmission is really fast these days," Daniel said. The robber was worried and thought to himself, "Damn, it is a level S villain really here." "This is unreasonable," Daniel said, stroking Betty. "Sorry I'm late, Betty," he said. "Daniel, come help me out here," someone called out. Alan appeared sighed and said, "This is such a hassle. Daniel, take her to the hospital and don't forget to take the envelope with the money from her bag." Then Alan walked over and roughly lifted Betty onto his shoulder. Daniel complained, "Alan, can't you be a bit gentler?" "She's injured." Alan handed over the envelope and said, "Why do I need to be so nice?" Daniel looked cute and said, "Please, Alan." Alan was taken aback, thinking, is this guy crazy or something? "I'll go first. If I stay here any longer, I might get thrown away." "See you later," Daniel said, waving his hand. "All right, let's continue our private conversation now," Daniel said. As he spoke, a green flame shot from Daniel's hand towards the robber, causing him to scream in pain. Daniel leaned on his hand and said, "I'll consider it if you can answer my question." The robber stuttered, "Yes, I'll answer everything." Daniel asked, "Why was the girl lying on the ground just now? I'm quite curious about this." The robber stammered, "It's because she kept carrying a lot of money and then ran away, so I pushed her." Daniel asked coldly, "Which hand?" "Don't make me repeat it twice," he warned. The robber's voice trembled as he replied, "My left hand." Then a scream echoed through the night. The scene shifted to the boss, who asked, "Have you heard about the fire at Mason's laboratory?" The boss replied, "I saw it on the news earlier." "Oh my God, the part-time worker at the cafe called and told me, but I didn't think the fire would be that big." Blondehair added, "It wasn't caused by a short circuit. It was due to a villain attack, specifically the kitchen villain." The boss picked up his beer and said, "Nonsense. How could a missing villain suddenly appear in Cookville?" Blondehair said, "Who knows, I was just told about it." The boss said people have too much time on their hands. Daniel walked over and put his hand on the boss's shoulder, saying, "Hello, Uncle Mike." "Are you Mike?" The boss, Mike, said, "Yes, that's me. What's going on?" He was startled. Daniel took out a bag of money and said, "It's nothing much. I'm just a classmate of Betty's, and I need to urgently deliver this to her boss," Daniel explained. Boss Mike snatched the bag and said, "Why didn't she bring it herself, if it's that important?" Daniel forced a smile and said, "Betty said she couldn't do anything else because she had urgent matters to attend to, and she sends her apologies." Daniel thought to himself, what a worthless person. Making a girl come here alone while you just sit here drinking and counting money? Don't think you can skim any money off the top, Daniel thought. "All right, if there's nothing else, I'll be off," Daniel said with a smile. Boss Mike waved his hand, saying, "Go ahead." Blondehair asked, "What's that about?" The boss replied, "Today's earnings." The part-timer asked a friend to bring it over. Blonde hair said, maybe her parents are worried about her, so she asked her boyfriend to come instead. Boss Mike joked, if she's an orphan, she wouldn't have parents waiting at home. Maybe she's just anxious and asked her boyfriend to come for her, implying that someone without parents would have to rely on others. Daniel, who overheard this, smiled coldly to himself, thinking, I've met enough trash today. Blonde hair said, let's not be too harsh. Let's just calm down. Can I borrow your lighter? As the boss lit the lighter, a blue flame shot straight towards the pile of money. I think I might be getting a bit angry. Or maybe I'm just a bit uncomfortable. But why hasn't Alan called back yet? He hasn't arrived at the hospital, has he? Daniel thought, feeling annoyed. Not long after, Betty gradually regained consciousness in the hospital. Wondering, is this a hospital? A nurse came over and said, our patient is awake. You're in the hospital. Is there anything uncomfortable? Betty replied, I'm fine. She was also puzzled about why she was there. The doctor came over and said, Betty Brown, the patient, has a 6-inch laceration on her head and required 20 stitches. There are no signs of internal bleeding, but we need to monitor her carefully for a while. The doctor asked Betty, do you need help from the police? Betty replied, no, I don't. She was worried, thinking if Dr. Marrow finds out, I'll be in big trouble. She continued, I wasn't hit by anyone. I'm really fine. The doctor said, all right, let's remove this then. You seem to be okay. The doctor was still concerned, but Betty reassured him, I'm really fine. Betty thought to herself, oh no, I don't have health insurance, so the bill must be over $1,000. Betty was surprised to learn my hospital bill has been paid. The doctor explained, the person who brought you here paid the bill before leaving. Betty was stunned, asking, who was it? The doctor was also surprised, I don't know. They were strangers to each other. Betty left still remembering the doctor's words. The person who brought you here was a girl, but we don't know her identity. The last thing I saw was a boy's shadow, Betty thought. Ah, right, the money, she remembered. It's all over. That scoundrel must have taken it all, Betty thought, feeling defeated. Haven't seen the boss call back, so he must have gotten drunk and forgotten. Thank God I was lucky this time. Before I could finish being overjoyed, the boss called. Is it all over now? Yes, boss, the boss said. Is Betty free to talk now? Betty replied, yes, I am. The boss on the other end of the line said, Betty is that the total revenue for today. No, it's not. The money is all gone, burned to nothing. It's just too painful to ask now. Betty looked confused. What do you mean the money was burned? The boss continued, Betty, I've encountered a bit of a problem. I don't think I can make it to the store in the next few days, so you'll have to handle things on your own during that time. If anything serious comes up, you must let me know right away. Yes, Betty replied. Yes, sir, the boss continued. Betty, have you taken care of that urgent matter? This girl, no matter how busy you are, you can't just hand over all the money to your friend like that. Betty, another fan is asking what's going on. The boss, Mike replied. Yes, that tall, lanky guy in all black. What if he runs off with the money? Kids these days. Anyway, that's how it is. Now Betty fell into deep thought, taking herself to the hospital to pay the medical fees and helping herself deliver the money to the boss. Who was this person really? The scene switched to Daniel's side. Alan had now walked over to Daniel, turning around and startling him. What's wrong? Were you worried about me? So you came looking for me, Alan replied. Why would I be worried? Did you hit your head or something? Daniel smiled brightly. I love seeing you get angry like this, Alan. Alan raised his middle finger. You're crazy. And who is that girl? Daniel asked. What do you mean? Alan looked at the wound and said, what happened to you? He himself was injured in the shoulder, but was still keeping an eye on her. Daniel replied, I'm fine. I want to know if she means something special to you. Daniel smiled and asked Alan. Alan, I'm serious, don't joke around. Daniel's gaze softened. You want to know why I did that, don't you? 2 hours ago at the Mason Pharmaceutical Laboratory. Damn it, I predicted James would be there, but I didn't expect Kevin to be there too. It seems those bastards only announced James to hide the people behind them. On the rooftop of the adjacent building, Alan shouted angrily, Stop it! Daniel advised Alan, keep your voice down. It's not that high up. Damn James, what a hypocrite. He's just a coward who pushes others into a corner, Daniel said. What can we do? You're level A and James is level S. That's a big difference. It's hard to overcome. Alan seemed too calm for someone who had just been messed up by James, Daniel countered. More accurately, this happened when I tried to save you. Alan, don't get so worked up. Having 2 level S superpowers in this small city means we were right about the research institute in Cookville. Alan took out a cloth to bandage Daniel's wound and said James is indeed a fool of the government. Daniel winced in pain. Alan, I'm not James. Be gentle. Daniel thought to himself, I'm clearly stronger than before. In the first clash with James, I won overwhelmingly. Today, it was close. Even if there's another level S superpower, they'll still lose to James. At least, that's what it seems like now. Then he spoke up. I'm looking forward to our next encounter. What's that sound? It sounds like gunfire. Alan slapped Daniel on the back and shouted, What are you staring at? This is no time to be distracted. Daniel winced in pain. Ow, that hurts. You're a level of superpower. Your strength is amazing. Daniel tried to pull his hand back, but it felt like all his strength was gone. Alan walked over and asked, What are you looking at? Daniel replied, That girl over there. Where does this road lead? Alan replied, To the intersection where all the bars are. Daniel also saw a robber following Betty. Who is that guy? Alan urged Daniel, Let's go. If we don't, we'll be caught up. Daniel said, I've decided. Alan asked, What have you decided? Daniel waved at Alan. You go ahead. I have something else to do. But Alan shouted back, Don't be ridiculous. Where are you going in that state? Are you crazy? Daniel smiled and said, You know why I decided to do a good deed this time. Maybe when I die, God will forgive me and not send me to hell. Alan looked at him and shouted, You're an atheist and now you're talking like this. Oh my God, this guy is crazy too. Returning to the present, Daniel spoke about his actions. I admit it was a bit excessive, but I hope you can understand that it was just out of compassion. Alan asked, Are you sure about what you're saying? Daniel replied, Do you always have to think so deeply to the point of getting a headache? It's not a big deal. It's over now. Alan spoke in a low tone. Daniel, we don't know when danger will strike, so it's not wise to get close to a normal person like that. Daniel continued, I knew you would think that way, but do you really think Betty is something special to me? She's just a schoolmate, someone who helps me hide my disguise. You know that. Alan was silent for a moment before saying, All right, if you say so. Daniel turned away. What else can be said? Alan shouted back. You should read less romance novels, Alan. I don't read those. Daniel smiled. I know you have a whole collection in your room. Alan got angry. You're the one who's dirty-minded. How can I trust someone like you to know what love is? Daniel smiled and said, I've said it before, love is the most ridiculous thing in the world. The scene switches to Betty's side, where everyone is talking about James when they see him. Look, it's really James. Today I even have a class with him. Betty sees him and thinks to herself, That tall boy wearing all black. Save me from the bad guy. He paid all the hospital fees and kindly brought the money to the boss. Could it be that the person who saved me is James? While she is lost in thought, James walks over. Betty, can we talk for a moment? Betty replies. Sure. This scene is unintentionally captured by a girl taking a photo. Later, James also comes over and says, Come in, Betty. Betty walks over and asks, What do you want to say, James? James is also hesitant, thinking about how to phrase it. James recalls his conversation with his assistant about Betty's condition. The assistant replies, As you can see, she's still not awake and needs more rest. James questions, I told you to keep an eye on Betty Brown, didn't I? The assistant stammers, I'm sorry I lost track of her in the crowd. James recalls past conversations. Don't be afraid, Hyun. Hold my hand and let's go together. Betty Brown reminds me of a childhood friend I lost. I know that the more I care about her, the more she'll suffer. I'm afraid it will happen again, so I've asked my secretary to keep an eye on her without anyone knowing. But I didn't expect things like this to happen. James asks, Where's the person responsible for this? The secretary replies, He's being investigated at the police station. However, they found something unusual about the culprit. A black burn mark on his left hand. James asks curiously, A burn mark? Can you tell me who brought her to the hospital? The secretary explains. When Betty Brown arrived at the hospital, all the CCTV cameras here were down. The staff said they couldn't see clearly because the person was wearing a hat and mask. However, they mentioned seeing short, smoky blue hair under the hat and a pair of fairly large brown eyes. Daniel immediately recognizes it and thinks it might be the villain Alan. If so, the burn mark must be Daniel's handiwork, so he saved Betty while others were attacking the laboratory. But it's unlikely they saved someone without a reason. That means Alan and James know Betty. But how does Betty know James? Daniel says to himself, what should I say? Betty, you met the robbers last night, didn't you? Betty's eyes light up. You're the one who saved me. Thank you for saving me yesterday. If it weren't for you, I would have been in big trouble. James is confused. I saved you, Betty replies. Yes, you saved me from the robber, and even paid my hospital bill, didn't you? James thinks to himself, looking at Betty's expression. Is she lying? No, it seems she really doesn't know who saved her. It was Daniel. James forces a smile. Actually, it wasn't me. My secretary happened to find you unconscious and called me. Betty says, Oh, so it was your secretary. Still, you came to help me, so thank you, James. James continues, I heard you were injured. So how could I not come to help you? Betty smiles brightly. That's so sweet of you. James blushes and stammers, No, it's not like that. All right, Betty. If everything is fine, can I have your phone number? That way, if you encounter any more trouble, you can call me. Betty thinks to herself, he did save me, so it's probably okay to give him my number. Betty hands over her phone. Sure, here's my number. James smiles and says, This is my number. If you need anything, remember to call me. You have a class this afternoon, right? Betty replies. Yes, but the two of them are unaware that Daniel has overheard their conversation and is furious. This is unbelievable. James is acting suspiciously like a hero, but it's quite shady. It seems he's ordered his secretary to follow Betty because he's concerned about her. That means he must have discovered the connection between the robber and himself. Daniel recalls Betty's expression when she was talking to James and feels uncomfortable. I'm the one who saved you, you fool. The scene shifts to another location. Linda crosses her arms and asks, What is it? A brown-haired girl says Betty is quite cunning. She said she wouldn't talk to anyone, but she secretly met James. A blonde girl asks, Is that Betty with James? When was it taken? The brown-haired girl replies, Just now after lunch. After that, James said he had something important and left without telling Betty. This is interesting. James dumped Linda for that bookworm, didn't he? Betty knows how to seize opportunities. Linda is furious, feeling like she's been punched in the face. The other girls egg her on. Yes, Betty pretended to be pitiful to cling to James. That's just typical. James is a hero, after all. Why would she let him go? Linda clenches her fists, thinking to herself, who does Betty Brown think she is? Then Linda turns to Rachel and asks, Didn't you say your parents wouldn't be home this Saturday? Rachel replies, Yeah. Linda smiles wickedly. Let's have a party at your house then, and make sure Betty Brown is the star of the party. The scene shifts to Betty's side, where she senses something odd. Is this how it always is with clients? I wonder who's texting me at this hour. Betty smiles as expected. The text is from James asking, Are you done with your tasks? A few days ago, after I got your number in the music room, James has been sending messages every few days, mostly sharing meaningless daily life. It's like I've gained another close friend, but don't get too excited, because James is naturally friendly. If he's not sober, he'll lose control. When Betty opened the door, a beam of light shone straight into her eyes. The person who arrived was Rachel. Rachel said, Betty, we've come to pick you up personally. Aren't you moved? Don't you know Linda invited you to our party? Betty turned around and said, You think I'm stupid. Why would I go there? Rachel grabbed Betty's hand and said, You're really looking down on me, aren't you? Betty turned back and said, Let go. If you continue like this, I'll tell Uncle Mero that Linda was drinking at the party. Rachel replied, Linda isn't here, so you're being so arrogant. But what can we do? If you don't come, Daniel will be very disappointed. What a pity. Upon hearing this, Betty paused and thought, Is Daniel there? Rachel continued, If you don't want to go, then there's nothing we can do. We'll just have to let Daniel be the star of the party. Betty shouted, Wait, I'll go! I'll attend the party! The scene switched to a different location where a car was entering. The camera started scanning. Upon detecting the car entering it, began to scan. The car belongs to Daniel. The license plate number is registered. You're cleared to enter. Daniel walked quickly to Eric. What did Eric say? Hunt is coming to Cookville. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Eric replied, This is news from New York. We just found out today. This person, Eric, is a level A superpowered individual with mental strength. Eric Hunt has already boarded a flight to Cookville. Besides, when I called you this morning, I was about to tell you, but someone hung up on me first. It was unavoidable, sorry. Eric turned around and continued. Anyway, what I want to say is that there's definitely something strange about this place, Cookville. Recently, from James to Kevin, I was surprised that 2 Level S superpowered individuals came to Cookville. Even Liam Hunt is here. His presence means that Dr. Stefan is still alive. 10 years ago, the truth about the unethical human experiments to create superpowers was revealed. The laboratory was shut down. Dr. Stefan, the center of the controversy, made an extreme choice. However, what the public knew was just the surface. The truth is that the doctor is still alive and well. No one else but the US government protected him. But if they sent Hunt just to protect the laboratory, the scale of manpower is too large. So I've made a hypothesis. Haven't Dr. Stefan's experiments succeeded in creating a Level S individual? Daniel suddenly stopped and thought, a Level S experiment. That must be. Then he spoke up. Now I understand. No wonder they deployed so much manpower. Daniel pondered, if this hypothesis is true, there will be more victims. We must find the laboratory and destroy it first. Eric said James about the successful Level S experiment subject. If it's true, it will be safer if we cooperate with other members to plan a future operation. I'm afraid James will discover your true identity. Daniel replied, Eric, we both know what happened in Dr. Stefan's laboratory. 10 years ago, we were the ones left behind in that laboratory. We can't live without the withdrawal medication. You can't stand under the sun due to the side effects of the medication. If it's something that can prevent all this, I won't hesitate to do it. Eric said, exactly. The reason we decided to become villains is that we don't want any more victims. Alan raised his hand and said loudly, and to take revenge. Daniel walked to Alan and said, you're here. Okay, Alan shrugged and said, I took a nice nap. It was so refreshing. Daniel grabbed Alan and asked, so why did you take $30,000 from my account yesterday? Alan stuttered, that. I donated it. You said you didn't want to go to hell, so I thought I'd do a good deed. Eric took out popcorn and said, wow, Alan, even though you're my friend, you're such an idiot. This isn't the time to worry about that. You're going to die soon. You know that money was the hospital bill for the girl. Daniel asked in surprise Betty's medical expenses. Alan scratched his ear and said, her name is Betty, right? The name sounds funny. Anyway, it's clear she doesn't have insurance or anything, so someone has to pay. Isn't that right, Eric? Eric wondered. Who is Betty? Daniel nodded and said, yeah, that's right. Alan smiled and said, exactly. Eric asked again. Who is Betty? Daniel suddenly realized, wait, Betty didn't have surgery. How could the hospital bill be $30,000? Alan said cheerfully, the $30,000 includes my fee. Alan ran away saying, you're rich anyway. Daniel said, I'm such an idiot. Wait, did you use my card to pay the hospital bill in full? So that bastard Jim didn't do anything but. Eric still wondered, who is Betty? Meanwhile, on Betty's side, the party had already started. The scene switched to a different location. In a room, a man entered the house, put down his glasses and removed his tie. He suddenly noticed something. A gun was pulled out from behind the mouse. Where are you? Immediately after, a gunshot was heard. The person who appeared was Daniel. He used his green flame power to block the gun, but his ability was neutralized. Then he spoke up. As expected, you're Daniel. I predicted you'd come to me. The gift I prepared may seem ordinary, but it will temporarily paralyze the abilities of superpowered individuals, similar to a stun gun. Daniel stood up and said, I'm afraid no one knows whether that damn research institute is good at making dog food or not. James put down the pill bottle he was tapping and began to aim, but the boy still stood firm. If he were a low-level superpowered individual, he would have been lying on the floor crying in pain by now. But since he was Level S, it was different. But now that he was in this state, no matter how strong he was, he would lose the ability to use his powers for a while. The other Level S individual was just an empty food box. If you can't take it, don't force yourself. Daniel quickly used some kind of ability and finished scanning. This time Daniel was able to catch Hunt's punch, surprising him. Daniel said coldly, Hunt, in my eyes, you're still just a 5-year-old kid. Don't get it wrong. I've been fighting the monsters you created all this time. Whether I have powers or not, you're not my opponent. Just then Daniel's earpiece beeped. Daniel, everyone is coming. Daniel replied, I understand. Hunt glared at him. How dare you mention the experiments? Daniel smiled and said, don't worry, it won't harm your health. It's just a normal anesthetic. Eric said, is the fire alarm your work? Of course, Eric replied. Even in the hall we can't be caught. Daniel smiled. That sounds good, Eric said. Let's forget about that. You've scanned what's on Han's eye, right? Daniel replied. Yeah, it's a perfect replica. Anyway, I'll be coming into your base later. Surprise. Daniel heard someone behind him whispering, Today is the day for the bookworm. It's great. It's been a while since we've had something like this. Let's go watch. The party for the bookworm is going to be great, isn't it? Betty Brown? Daniel froze upon hearing this. The scene shifted to the party where people were whispering and chatting. I heard that when Daniel arrived, she came too as if they were dating. They do match both being outcasts. Poor Betty, your stuttering friend isn't here anymore. Betty thought to herself, luckily Daniel isn't here. But now the real problem is these people. Linda stood above arms crossed and said, Betty, you know what? I really hate your shameless face right now. You should be trembling with fear, not glaring at me like that. Betty asked Linda, Don't you get tired of bullying me all the time? Linda replied, How can I get tired? I won't stop until you disappear from my sight. Betty stood at the end of the diving board thinking, I'll be leaving Cookfield in 2 months anyway. But if I let Linda do this, how will she torment me further? He just wants me to suffer. Then Betty spoke up. Why do you hate me so much? What have I done wrong? Linda pointed at Betty and said, Don't you know, your very existence is a mistake. Ever since you appeared at my house, everything has been chaotic. You see, your bad luck finally killed my dad. But Betty fell into deep thought. Yes, that's what you said back then. However, the reason Uncle Stefan died was because he committed a crime. If I reveal the truth, will things change? Back then, Betty had overheard a conversation between 2 men. What happened to the toxic accident in Stefan's lab? The research institute concluded it was a normal accident, so the investigation was closed. It's clear that it's related to something illegal. I absolutely can't tell anyone about this. If I do, I'll be kicked out of the house for daring to slander Uncle Stefan. For now, let's just keep this secret. I know this won't benefit you either since you're also suffering like me. But what's not right is not right. Then she said calmly, I'm saying it again. Uncle Stefan's death wasn't my fault. You know that too. It had nothing to do with me. Linda's veins bulged with anger. It wasn't your fault. Betty said, Don't be ridiculous. Linda became angry again. Ridiculous. Tell me, why do people around you always die? Your parents. My dad. And now your uncle is dead too, right? Upon hearing this, Betty couldn't help but say, Don't talk nonsense. My uncle is still alive. Linda continued. No, you'll be waiting until the next quince harvest, but your uncle won't come back. Your fate is to be an orphan, so just leave my life now. Then Linda pushed Betty into the pool. The people present started to gossip and laugh. Wow, this is quite a scene. I got a great shot. Look at this. Betty surfaced from the water. Linda said from above, You should know your place, Betty Brown. You think you can be friends with James? Just stay in that hole for the rest of your life. Just then something surprising happened. Someone arrived. The blonde-haired person was shocked. What is this guy doing here? The person who arrived was none other than Daniel. Daniel, why are you here? Daniel held out his hand and said, If you've been in the water too long, you'll catch a cold. The others mocked. Is he here to save Betty? Is he the real Prince Charming? Ha ha, the stuttering prince is an idiot. Their relationship is deeper than I thought. Someone else grabbed Daniel. Betty got angry. What are you doing? Let Daniel go. Linda pointed at Betty's face and said, Shut up. If you step out of the pool, we'll drown Daniel. Betty had no choice. Okay, I'll do as you say. Just don't do anything to Daniel. Linda continued. What else is there to say? Rose Royal, let's get started already. Rose and Royal responded. Done. Now Betty's eyes widened as she thought, If only I weren't a guide but someone with superpowers, I wouldn't have to feel so helpless. I just wish I could deal with that trash once and for all, she thought. Suddenly, a loud explosion occurred behind Betty. Linda's group panicked. What's going on? Oh my God, it's on fire. Must be an electrical short circuit. Let's get out of here. Betty looked at the explosion, puzzled. Could it be because of me? Daniel called out, Come here. Betty's eyes widened as she responded, Okay. Linda was busy with the hose. Here. Take the hose. Angel was crying hysterically. What am I supposed to do now? Dad won't forgive me for losing Linda. Linda shouted. You're still worried about that now. Someone call 911, someone shouted. A column of water gushed down, extinguishing the flames. As the people around them gradually appeared, James walked straight towards Linda, then ignored her and approached Betty. He put his jacket around Betty and asked, "Why are you here?" James's tone turned serious. "Linda, Stefan, I heard there was a party here, but it seems it's already over. I'll take Betty home." "Okay, let's go, Betty. And you too, Daniel." Linda watched them leave, fuming. "I guess I can never get along with Linda again." James turned to Betty and asked, "Are you hurt anywhere?" Betty replied, "No, I just fell into the water." James asked, "Was it Linda who pushed you?" Betty remained silent, recalling what happened at the party. She said to James, "Thanks for helping me today, but from now on I don't want you involved in my business with Linda." James was taken aback. "I'm sorry I didn't mean to hurt you. But Betty, it's better if I help you now." Betty smiled wryly. "No, it's okay. I just want to live peacefully at Linda's house." She removed James's jacket, thinking I was glad to hear that, but now we should go back to normal. She handed the jacket back to James and said, "I'm going home." As she and Daniel left, Betty asked, "Weren't you going in a different direction?" Daniel hesitated, searching for an excuse. "Let me take you home," Daniel said. Betty looked at him for a moment before saying, "You came to save me today, didn't you? But please don't do it again. If you get hurt because of me, I'll have to admit I'm really unlucky." "You can call me stupid and I won't argue," Betty said. Daniel, no longer stuttering, said, "Betty Brown, you're not unlucky." Upon hearing this, Betty felt a warmth in her heart and nodded slightly. "Okay." She gently grasped Daniel's sleeve. Moving closer to him, she said, "Thank you." Sometime later, Daniel was lying on the sofa juggling a ball. Eric couldn't take it anymore and said, "James, what's bothering you? You've been distracted all week." Alan said, "It looks like he's lovesick." Daniel covered his face. "I'm fine." Eric continued, "I've never seen you like this before. You're really under the spell of love, aren't you?" Daniel remained silent, prompting Eric to shout, "Hey, say something, you're making me anxious." Daniel waved his hand. "I don't know. My head is about to explode." Daniel put his hand on his forehead, lost in thought about the pool party. The memories still lingered in his mind. She was so vulnerable. "Why can't I just ignore her?" he thought. Daniel's face turned red as he said to Eric, "I think I might really have feelings for Betty." Eric was taken aback. "Wait, you can't be serious. You're not even supposed to be thinking about love." Daniel asked, "Can't I like someone?" Eric said. "Just wait a minute." Daniel still didn't understand. "Isn't it okay if I don't do anything?" Eric became serious. "It's not that simple." It seemed something had happened at Mason. The scene cut to another location where an urgent announcement was made. "Alert, alert. We've lost contact with test subject 2. 2 people were discussing. What does it mean to lose contact with a test subject? It keeps happening. Shouldn't we be evacuating? If that's the case, the security team should be here by now. It's just us here. Does that mean the alarm system is malfunctioning?" One of them said, "Maybe the sensors got damaged after Daniel's attack." "Then let's just leave early. Let's go back inside." The moment they opened the door, a wall of flames erupted. "Run! Get out of here! We need to escape." "Wait, stop, the new target is just here."